Hey guys, if you don't know who I am, I'm Savia Rocks, and I help people tell their stories, stay inspired, and get educated as they find the pride of who they are within creativity, but most of all, without judgment. Join us as we talk about
You really want to leave a legacy, do something for mankind. Do something that's going to benefit not just your children, everyone else's children.
I think our job as humans is to become the person we were born and peel away the cultural stuff that was given to us, the trauma, like peel away the stuff that changed us or that was thrown on us or made us small or made us go off track.
The biggest thing I've always found is when people think they know so much, then they start knowing so little.
And I'm making the right choice, and I'm showing up for myself, and I'm showing up for what matters in life.
Sometimes I think that trauma doesn't always have to be a bad thing. I think trauma can help you make choices in your life that turn something that started bad into something beautiful. So guys, welcome to season 7 of the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hi, my name is Amir Marvasti and I'm an ophthalmologist. You're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have Dr. Amir with me, who is an ophthalmologist. And one thing, even before we begin, it intrigues me to know about Amir, first of all yourself, but also what you do in your profession. And I know we spoke a little bit about it, even a fraction about it just now. But I'm going to be so happy and excited to talk to you about this because it intrigues me so well. So I love and I want to say thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Us People podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Savia. It equally excites me, if not more, to be here with you. As I shared with you, this is my first podcast. So just like everything else, the first time you do it, you feel a certain way.
Yes,
and
true.
I feel more excitement than being nervous, but your calming voice and just having listened to some of your work and the way you make people comfortable is great and something I've tried to inject into my life and my practice.
Definitely. So I'm so happy to have you here today. So Amir, my first question for you is, could you tell me a bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Very good. Happy to. So my background is I was born in United States in Texas, but just a few days after that, my parents took me to Iran, and that's where I'm from. Grew up there up until the age of 18, and then I moved to United States, where I am now in California. In terms of how all of my upbringing impacted who I am today, when I think of my life, it's really a story of two worlds and how the contrast between them shaped who I am today. So, Eastern culture and Middle East versus moving to the United States and the Western culture. So the East and West, and having spent formative years in both cultures, living in Iran and the United States, two very different countries. And in my upbringing, my parents, my mom and dad, they both gave me a lot of love, but a different version of love. And we'll get into it in a little bit, but in very different ways, they impacted me. And I always find myself in between, or in a bridge between East and West, Iran and US, and the different aspects that my parents taught me. And I feel like that contrast and that bridge really shaped who I am. And a lot of times, as opposed to picking if I want to be more American or more Iranian or more this way or that way, I just kind of chose to carry both with me. So I mentioned my parents, had were very different and did different things for me. My dad is also an ophthalmologist, which is what I do. And in many ways, he's a role model. What he showed me was discipline and hard work and picking a goal and sacrificing whatever it takes to get there. On the other hand, my mom also showed me sacrifice, but in a different way. She gave up a lot of what she could do for herself, the individual, for the bigger purpose of the family and her marriage and her two kids, myself and my sister. So a different version of sacrifice, to explore and to be open and to feel. I feel like I got all of that from my mother. So very different energies that I got from my parents. And I feel like I'm right in the middle, the discipline of my father and the openness of my mom. So that contrast and the cultural contrast between Middle East and here and the two countries kind of influenced who I am today that you're talking to. I moved here when I was 18 ultimately, and that's an interesting age to immigrate because you're probably old enough that you have some identity from wherever you grew up, and I certainly did. But I would argue you're young enough that you are still malleable and you can absorb like a sponge anything and everything in new culture. In my case, maybe replacing some things in my culture with what I learned here. So that age of me moving here definitely impacted me. And when I moved here, it's a new country, new everything. None of my friends, none of my family members were here. So in many ways, I found that I had to kind of rebuild myself, and I relied on the same two things I learned from my parents: the discipline and the hard work, and also the openness and being adventurous and adaptable from my mom. And that kind of, I used that to become who I am today. And I see that, or these elements, in everything I do in my life, like my profession. I'm an eye surgeon and an ophthalmologist, and I feel like I see both aspects. I work really hard. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I'm after excellence. I don't want 99%. I want 100%. At the same time, I do it because I want connection. It's a human interaction at the end of the day. And I try to humanize medicine when I see a patient. So I kind of find both of those aspects in my career and life every day.
See, that
was a long answer.
No. It was an interesting answer. And it tells me so much already about you and how your mother and father sacrificed from different perspectives. And you've taken those elements and put them into yourself. And then you showed yourself certain sacrifices in order for you to be the articulate person that you are now in how you do things. And even when you talk about, for example, perfection, we all have different levels of what perfection means to us and how we implement that into what we do. And in basically everything in life is giving a service, and how you give that service in your way of perfection, people see that and feel it. So I completely understand it. So my second question for you is one of the questions that I love asking, which is, can you define yourself as a person? But also, who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to go from a person in the mirror that you may feel or thought you didn't like the reflection of, to becoming a person that you felt in your life had purpose?
Very good question. And I think it's particularly interesting to me as a question because a lot of times people see me, the title, the profession, and they forget that I'm also a human, and I have feelings and ups and downs and fears and stress. And I feel like as a society, we look at doctors sometimes and feel like, they must, maybe they don't feel fear as much as everyone else, or they're more brave, or they're more smart. And I disagree with all of that. I think at its core, every doctor is a human being. In terms of myself, I think as a person, how would I define myself? I'm someone who At its core, I seek to do. Wow, that's a tough question. It really makes you reach deep down in your heart. That's why your podcast is special. I find my purpose and myself in finding joy and happiness in others. Really, if you ask me what brings me fulfillment or what makes me want to wake up every morning or do everything I do, I think for all of us it's fulfillment. Then the question is, how do you define fulfillment? And for me, it's become opening doors for people that were told the door will always be closed, or there's no opportunity, or you can't do it. And I feel like in many ways that's the story of my life, being told, no, you can't do it, and proving to myself that I can. And I find fulfillment in showing others that they can do it. And selfishly, it makes me feel good about myself if someone gets inspired by my story to do it. And that's what's given me and my life a purpose. And when I look at the mirror, if I have done that, or the days that I do more of that, I'm more happy with myself. And the days that I couldn't do it or believe I can do it, days that I'm not happy with who I see in the mirror. The second part of your question was, can you repeat when I look at the mirror?
Yeah, of course. So when you look in the mirror, the reflection of yourself, but on the flip side of that, has there ever been a time when you have not liked the reflection of yourself? And then the second part of it is where you felt like you found purpose. So through going through everything that you have gone through and not liking the person that you are, finding purpose on the other side and seeing your reflection and saying, this is the person that I feel has purpose.
Thank you. Yes. The times that I've looked and I didn't like what I saw in the mirror are times that I couldn't connect with the world around me. So whether that's connecting with my peers, my friends, a romantic relationship with my patients, and in each category, I've have success stories and failure stories, like many one of us, and going through the ups and downs and figuring out why I couldn't connect in this relationship, with this friendship, or with this romantic partner, or with this patient, is and has been the defining moment for, well, what should I do differently to do that? Or do I need to change my wants or my approach? Or did I not communicate well? Or did I not show what is it that I'm after? And I really feel like at the end of the day, we humans seek connection. If I have everything I have today, but you put me in an island with no one that I can talk to or connect with, I'm going to be miserable and everything becomes meaningless. Yeah. So in finding connection, I found purpose and fulfillment. And when I failed to do that, again, in different departments of life, friends and colleagues and romantic partners, is when I didn't like the person I saw in the mirror. And those were the times where I asked myself, how can I change that to not feel that way anymore?
It takes time.
It does. It does. And it takes a lot of failures to know your style and what you want, then in turn to feel the success. So that's been my experience.
See, this is why I love asking that question, because it strips so many layers away from a person.
It makes you go deep. It's not a question I get asked every day. So,
which is nice, and I always thank my guests for doing it, because it brings them into a slightly vulnerable state of mind. And the thing is that people look at you, like you said, and they see this professional, they see this perfectionist, and they don't realize what you've been through or what you are going through yourself. And it's nice to be able to show people that each and every one of us are relatable in some kind of way. It's just about having those conversations with each other to find it. And that's why it's wonderful.
Couldn't agree more. And and my profession happens to be one that we don't talk about feelings a lot. We just talk about numbers and data, and so in my profession, I don't get to talk about it a lot. I'm trying to talk about more about it, and I'm probably more of a shy person when it comes to these topics. Even with my friends and family, I rather talk about everyday stuff as opposed to sometimes deep and uncomfortable topics when it gets to it. I recently passed my mother a few months ago, and it forced my family and I to sit down and have some conversations that were a little bit uncomfortable. All the gaps that my mom filled for us, and now we're all sensing the emptiness. How do we fill that, and whose responsibilities for what? And I just realized how difficult it was for me, and how much I've been kind of trying to avoid having those very much needed conversations. So that was just one example of how it was a good reminder for me.
Let's talk about your profession, because a lot of people will not understand or know exactly what you do in your profession. So I'm gonna go into a day in your life, and I would just like people to know, what is a day like in Dr. Amir's life, when, first of all, when you explain to us your profession of what you do so people can understand, but also how you help patients as well.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So my job title is an ophthalmologist, which means a medical doctor that has specialized in eyes, or doing eye surgery. So my day-to-day or week-to-week would involve seeing patients in clinic, diagnosing their eye issue, proposing a treatment plan, and that could be a medical treatment like an eye drop, or a surgical treatment like eye surgery. And there's a lot of them. So that's from a technical standpoint. I've been doing what I'm doing for about 7 years now, and if you asked me the same question 7 years ago, then now you're going to get different answers. 7 years ago, the answer would have been purely technical. These are the top surgeries I do. These are the kind of things my patients come to see me for. And 7 years later, I feel like I'm still in the early to middle of my career. I think I define ophthalmologist, you can divide it by different ways. You can divide by where they did your training, or how good you may be technically or surgically. The way I like to differentiate ophthalmologists today is who can humanize and contextualize what we're doing for the patient. At the end of the day, vision is a deeply personal and subjective sense. We measure it in our clinics with a lot of metrics and numbers, and 20/20 you may hear. But at the end of the day, these are all numbers and things that we use to know what we're doing and be able to communicate with our colleagues. But it's a very personal sense. I mean, you say things like we say, here's how I see it, which means we're looking at the same data or image or information, but you may interpret one thing and I may interpret something different. And
that's true.
I use that to make the point, vision is a very personal thing. So two patients in my clinic can see the same number, 20/20, but they subjectively see very different things. And one of them may be very happy, one of them may be very unhappy. So I think the kind of eye doctor who I hope to become is one that can contextualize and humanize the sense of vision.
Yes.
I have the technical expertise and the knowledge to hopefully enhance or improve your vision, but at the end of the day, you're not going to care about the numbers that I tell you about your vision. You care about, okay, here's how I see the world, and I'm happy or unhappy. So I try to remind myself that, it's a human on the other side, and to view it in that way. And I feel like 7 years ago, I would have just focused on the technical aspects and how fast was the surgery and how sleek the surgical technique was, and the vision result, look how amazing it is. But forgetting the main piece, which is the human on the other side. How does that person feel about the ultimate result? And equally as important, what journey did they have to get there? You can have a great vacation to Thailand, but if the flight is delayed and bad and turbulence, it's not a good start to your vacation. And same thing with eye surgery. The outcome may be great, but the journey is just as important. Did you have a lot of fear? about someone touching your eye, doing an eye surgery. I mean, it's a very fear-inducing and anxiety-inducing, traumatizing sometimes step in the patient's day or life. And if I can take away your fears and anxiety and make it a good flight to your destination, that's just as important as the destination.
What I really want to ask as well is, what are some of the potential risks and side effects of the procedures that you do on people's eyes? Because I know you just spoke about, the journey and people having anxiety and so on and so forth. But also, when I was also reading up, and I also read this in your bio, where you say a lot of the effects of your eyes actually happen before you realize that it's actually happening within your eyes. So when you start to say, okay, I'm starting to have bad vision, for example, that's actually happened even before you're realizing that is happening. So I'm really intrigued by knowing the symptoms and knowing the procedures of going through eye surgery and just how it all is.
The eyes are very interesting. Many other parts of the body, you most commonly start with a symptom. Let's say you have a belly pain.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away. You go to the ER, you go see a doctor. That can happen with eyes too. You wake up one day, you have much more blurry vision. It's not normal. You go to see an eye doctor. But a lot of times you can have eye conditions where they don't hurt. They don't cause immediate blindness, but they're slowly happening and they're affecting the health of your eye. And a common example is glaucoma, where you can have high eye pressure that we don't sense, but slowly it's affecting our, what we call optic nerve, the nerve in our eye, and slowly taking away vision. I call it the silent thief, because it's slowly and painlessly taking away your vision, and it's irreversible. So unless you've go to an eye doctor to get your eyes checked, you may not even know you have it. And a good analogy is your blood pressure. You can have high blood pressure and not even know it unless it's extreme high. So with my field, I'd say a third of the time you sense a problem with your eyes or vision, or it hurts or it itches or it's blurry and you seek care. A third of the time you're here for a regular checkup and I find something. And a third of the time you don't have a real problem. Let's say you wear glasses or contacts and you see just fine, but you want to get rid of those glasses and contacts.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole list of elective surgeries, the most common being LASIK, that you're seeing me for. So I would divide my day in terms of patient groups in those three parts.
Let's talk about you studying, for example, because this is going to be really interesting. For you, I know that your father was a huge inspiration for you to be doing what you're doing today.
Yes.
But when it comes to education, from your perspective, I'm so intrigued. How is it? Because I know the studying must be quite intense. How was it for you studying and going for this? And I know, obviously, having your father there, and I think that's a bonus for you in a way, because he would have the intellect to be able to show and tell you these things. But for someone who wants to get into exactly what you do, how is it? How do you get into it? The studying for it?
Very interesting. When you talk to 100, I will tell you my story, but if you talk to 100 ophthalmologists, most of them didn't see it for the first time in medical school as a potential option and then choosing it. Most of them had a background, whether a family member did that, whether they had an eye problem growing up. In my personal case, you talked about all the education and all the steps that go for it, and anything meaningful or significant in life, I feel like you have to have a very strong why. Yes. And my strong why started with a very simple story as a kid, where we went on a family vacation, and there was the son of one of my father's friends, and we all started playing soccer. And halfway that I just noticed that he's kind of like not looking at people the right way or missing the ball. And by the end of that day, I realized this poor guy is blind, which was very saddening, but even more inspiring. He was playing soccer with his blind eyes with us, And I couldn't even tell halfway through the day. And later I realized that he can play piano and do a lot of things and is a very talented guy. So that just as a small kid made me question, okay, so, vision, apparently some of us don't have good vision and blind. And it made me ask questions like that. That was before me realizing what an ophthalmologist is or what my dad really does.
Yeah.
But it made me think about that. And I always remember that day and that story. And I'd say the way my father impacted me was less him being an ophthalmologist specifically, but just his hard work and drive. I feel like he's a guy that got a lot of no's before yeses to get to where he is. And I feel like in that way, he was more of a role model than him being specifically an ophthalmologist. The part of his influence in terms of eye care and ophthalmology was just me seeing his lifestyle and seeing what his patients meant to him and what he meant to his patients. That spoke to me. And to me, that was the idea of being a doctor, sitting down, listening, figuring out the problem, and proposing a solution, in this case, an eye surgery. And the kind of smile and the stories that his patients would have and the impact that he would have on their lives in return was a feeling that I just imagined, well, how amazing must it be for someone to show up with a major vision problem, let's say extreme would be blindness, and you're telling me your profession, you can do something to bring vision back to someone. If that's what you're telling me, and if that's the kind of reaction you're going to get from your patients, gosh, I can't wait to feel how that feeling must feel. So that was my why. And throughout all the ups and downs of going through the training and medical school and this and that, every time I felt tired or almost giving up or having a door shut in my face, I would go back to that why, that, okay, doesn't matter why, it doesn't matter how, I really want to get to that place because now I'm committed to know what that feeling is like. And gosh, what kind of a fulfillment or purpose would that provide for me selfishly? So that's my story of why I went to this. But yes, and I look at some of my colleagues and they make it look easy. They went through this school, that school, all the top schools. For me, it was not easy. It was hard every time studying, and then it was not good enough, studying even harder and applying and getting denied and applying again. So it was not a straight line by any means. There was a lot of ups and downs. But at the end, I feel like my North Star was always, I want to become that, and it doesn't matter what it takes.
I think your story has more gratitude within it compared to anybody else's one. Because it seems like maybe they had a different type of privilege in their life, whereas yours doesn't sound like you had that. And I always find that when people have to graft a lot more, it's a lot more, I think we connect with our patients even more so because we understand personally what they're going through and how it is for them and how it was for us to enable us to get to that destination of where we wanted to get to. And that is relatable. Those are the things that are the most important things. Those are the things that are relatable, which is so important. So definitely I understand it.
Yes, and you mentioned privilege. Yes, it was hard. I don't want to make it sound like it was going through a major hardship. I definitely had a lot of opportunities that my parents provided, and being in this country provided for me. But at the same time, yes, I had to really work hard for that, and I'm so grateful that I did it. I don't know what I would have done right now. Sometimes people ask me, what if you couldn't become an eye doctor, what other kind of a doctor would you want to be? And the answer is, I wouldn't want to be a doctor altogether. I would probably go, I don't know, build buildings, something different. I don't know.
Buildings.
But I think I get my human connection on a daily basis from my patients. And if that's taken away from me, I would feel lost in many ways, probably.
What is it like preparing for a surgery? What is that feeling like for you, knowing that you're going to help somebody? Because it works two ways, really, when I say this question. It works, what is it like when you see someone knowing that you are going to operate, number one? But what is the flip side of that is, what is it like for you also, knowing that you're going to do a procedure?
So I'll divide that question for in terms of what is it like to do a surgery. I'd say it's two opposing forces. On one hand, excitement, knowing that I've done this thousands of times, I know all the ins and outs of it, and I'm about to make a big impact, hopefully on someone's life, and all the positive energy that goes with that. But on the flip side, the stress that, okay, this is someone's vision we're talking about, and it's their eyes, and things can go wrong. I mean, you talked about what can go wrong in the past. Every surgery in every field has complications, and no matter how good of a surgeon you may be, we always say if you don't want to have complications, don't do surgery. So it's just part of the deal. So on the flip side of the positivity and excitement is, I'd say, a healthy dose of stress and understanding that this is someone's vision and eye, and things can go wrong, and not taking an eye surgery lightly. You know, a lot of times we say, oh, it's a quick 10-minute surgery, in and out, which may make the patient feel good. And I sometimes may use that verbiage, but at the same time, I don't want to take away from the fact that it is an eye surgery, that I got a lot of thought and work goes into it. And these are the complications you should be aware of. And we're going to do the best to avoid all of that. But, you know, that moments before I walk into the surgery room or make my first incision or, you know, enter someone's eye, I have these two opposing forces, all the excitement and, you know, what can happen for this patient in terms of enhancing their quality of life through their vision. But at the same time, okay, make sure everything goes as if there is such a thing as perfectly, and you can't accept 99%, it has to be 100% good.
Yes.
And that, you know, in my field, it's really a matter of nanometers and nanoseconds, the difference between a successful or unsuccessful surgery. So that's in terms of what goes in my head. I also feel like I separate the patient from their eye and their eye anatomy. When I walk in and see the patient before their surgery, I try to remember, you know, where they live, their son, their family, their vacations, their habits, their loved ones, things that I can talk to them and kind of bring the human aspect. But in my mind, I'm also in the background thinking of their eye anatomy and physiology and pathology and all the different steps that I need to take or maybe do differently in that unique case. So I kind of have to run these two worlds parallel because I want them to see and hear the human side of medicine, but I know I have to deal with the real clinical aspect side of medicine. So it's an interesting contrast, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I never want to walk into a surgery room with zero stress. I feel like the times that I get arrogant and I feel like I've done this so many times, I'm so good at this, are the times that I run into issues. So, and it's a very humbling thing. You can do all the training and all the preparation and still run into problems. So always, I call it a healthy dose of stress, which makes me be on top of my game. I imagine, let's say, a professional athlete, they've done it for their whole life, but let's say if you're in the finals game, hopefully you have a little bit of a stress in the back of your mind, and that's going to keep you on your toes and make you deliver at your best.
See, this is why I love asking these questions. So my next question for you is, I'm going to talk about judgment. Mm-hmm. We can be judged based upon who we are, our religion, where we come from. If I took away the word judgment, what do you believe that you would have done differently in your life, knowing that judgment didn't exist?
I took judgment very seriously earlier in life, and maybe even right now, trying to reduce its impact and footprint on my day-to-day life. But if judgment didn't exist, or I would have eliminated for myself, I think I would have progressed faster, be a lot easier on myself, not worry about all the negative aspects of judgment that gets introduced to our lives, because I feel like it's a point of friction, and it makes you slow down in whatever you're trying to achieve in your life, in your profession, in your personal development. And it's a topic, I don't want to act like I've completely been able to ignore it out of my life. I feel like it does impact me how people, patients, friends, colleagues, romantic partners think of me. And to some degree, I feel like that may be healthy. It may impact me to improve myself or change my behavior in a positive way. But just like everything, too much of it can be negative. So for me, if you eliminated judgment, I think there would have been a positive and negative. I think the positive would have been I developmentally would have progressed faster. In my profession, I would have progressed faster. The negative would be I would have not used that in a form of feedback to change my behavior, communication style. And judgment has such a negative connotation next to it. I feel like if you can transform it into feedback and to transform it into something positive, then it could have some positive in it too.
No, I totally understand that. So my next question for you, which I love asking, is a lot of the time we get, just like I'm throwing questions at you right now, if there was one question, Amir, that you wished someone would ask you, but they never really have asked you that question, what would it be and why?
And one of my favorite questions now that I ask myself that people don't ask enough of me or anyone is, and then what? Is the phrase, and then what? You talk about success, and we can define success in different ways. Let's say financial success, success in your career, and then what? If you make double the income, if you have double the status, if you have double the amount of travel, if you have double everything, and then what? So it's become a guiding force in my day-to-day routine. I mean, let's say I want to get a raise in my job, and then what? What would that mean for me? How would it impact my life? Will it really make me happy? Or is it just extra work for me? Do I want to travel more? What does travel mean to me? So let's say you stay double the time in a place. What would that do for you? So this, and then what question, which is a very general question, I understand. It's very generic, but it's made me think of things in a different way. I want to buy a car, a nicer car, and then what? What would that do for me? So it's such a general but relevant question that I'm asking myself, because I feel like for me, I was in this, I want to do better and I want to make more and I want to have a nicer car. I want to have a bigger house and I want to go to a nicer hotel on my vacation. And recently, after my mother's passing, I've spent a lot of time with myself alone. I've asked myself things like this, okay, let's say you can do it. And then what? How will that impact your happiness or fulfillment or life in any way? So now every day, everything I do, I ask myself, you want to go to the gym? Okay. And then what? Okay, I want to be a little bit healthier. Maybe I live longer. Okay. So it's been interesting asking myself that question anytime I make any decision in my life.
That's actually quite an interesting way of putting it. In a way, it's very intriguing, because you then say, and then what? And then you say to yourself, is it worth it?
And when you think about it, you can apply it to anything and everything. Like I'm here sitting on a podcast.
Yeah.
And then what? Then what answer I've already thought about it is, a lot of social media gives you a lot of reach, but not a lot of depth. Like you're not going to remember the last reel on Instagram or picture, but you may remember the last movie you watched because it had a lot more depth. And I feel like podcast is a medium for that. I mean, maybe the reach may not be as flashy as social media, but for those who listen and for those who go into it, the depth, hopefully, and that's why we ask the questions that you do and go over them, and in hopes of just the same way I learned from your other guests. Hopefully, someone will listen to this and will take something that would impact or can inject into their daily life. So, but it's interesting to ask, and then what? Why are you doing this? Which is such a simple question, but I've been starting to ask that myself.
It has you can have a million answers to, and then what?
And then what,
which is so intriguing. So my next question for you is, if you could choose one quote that represents you as a person, what quote would you choose, and why would you choose that particular quote?
I went straight to the first thing that came to my mind. I don't know who said this. I just saw it on one of these coffee shop boards that they write like an interesting quote in hopes of you getting in. And it said, do it now because sometimes later becomes never.
That is very true.
And I feel like it's something, it's very true. It so much applies to me because I'm that let's do it later guy. Let's get together. Oh, we can do it later. Let's work on this project. Oh, we can do it later. Like I'm that person. Again, I keep going back to my mother's story. I could have done a lot more with my mom, travel and experiences and memories. And all the let's do it later and later kind of, I feel like, costed me that I kind of missed out on a lot of things that I could do. So that quote stays with me. And I don't even know who said it. And it was in front of some coffee shop. But I always remember it. And I put it in every time I have a lecture slides. I put it as the last slide. I feel like it speaks to a lot of people.
See, my next one I feel will resonate with you quite well then. So my next question is, when was the last time you remember feeling totally at peace with yourself?
I don't think it's a question of when was the last moment or day or time. For me, peace is, there's two aspects to peace. One is understanding that there are things out of my control and being at peace with that. And the second part is things that are within my control, whether it's my mind or thinking or physical actions. I do the best that I can, and I'd be the best version of me that I can be, because that's all I can control. I can control the rest of the world. So once I understand these two pieces, I'm at peace. So I feel like, generally speaking, and after reminding myself these two on a daily basis, I feel like I'm at peace. I don't think peace for me was a moment in time that had a peak for me. I think reminding myself these two concepts is what brings me peace.
I've only got two more for you, but my second to last one, we talk about legacy. So many people have a different definition of what legacy means and how it impacts them and their lives. People seem to think that legacy is when we pass, but I don't think that's true. I think that legacy is an everyday occurrence, how we speak to people, how we touch them, the conversations we have. But from your perspective, what do you believe legacy means to you?
I agree with you. I think the idea that, we talk about legacy after someone passes away is how most may perceive it. You may make a movie of someone after they pass away, or make a statue of someone after they pass away to symbolize or remind people of their legacy. But to me, legacy, I agree with you. It's how you make people around you feel, making them feel seen and heard, and the impact you have on your surrounding community and people. And it's not it's not, as you said, it's not something that, okay, Amir passed away, here's his legacy. It's something you can impact and shape every day and every second. And my legacy today may be different than tomorrow. And
True.
I hopefully I'll choose to change and impact my day-to-day legacy based on feedback that I get and results that I see in my day every day.
See, I like that. And before I have the pleasure or saying thank you to you and coming on the show. I would love for people to know, or even where they can possibly find more about you, or even would like to connect with you and have a conversation with you. Where can they humbly find you?
Thank you, Savia. Easiest places to find me would be number one on my Instagram. I don't know if there's a way for you to post it and I can email it to you, but if not, it's Amir Marvasti, MD. Extremely long last name, but I can write it and maybe we can post it somewhere. That's number one. And number two, my LinkedIn accounts. Those are the two places to connect with me personally. My professional website is through our company, so that wouldn't come directly to me. I do have a foundation that I just started called the Marvasti Foundation, and that does have a website we're working on, marvastifoundation.org. But that's a work in progress. But that's another way to connect with me.
I want to say thank you so much for coming and talking about your life, your background, your profession of what you do. I appreciate you so much. It's been such an honor, and I hope you've enjoyed your first podcast.
Thank you, Savia. I want to thank, first of all, yes, this was a great first experience in terms of podcast. And who better than you? I feel like you have such a soothing voice, and you create the space that gives people comfort to answer some of the deep questions you ask, for us to dig deep and peel the layers and feel vulnerable. So I felt all of that, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much. And this is where I say, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to the Yes People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe or leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or any platform that you desire. And the most important part, guys, this is where I say thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
I'ma get deeper, tables are turning, world in reverse, political burning. Where is the love, where is the hope, where is the faith inside? It's been misplaced, power being misguided, manipulation used for both sides, unjustified violence. You living it up in your kingdom where you're using the misguide that wants to do your killing.
Thank you, Savia. Honestly, it was great spending the hour with you. I think it went a lot easier than what I thought. I was a little bit nervous, but I think you have a way of making people feel comfortable.
And the blurry lines, I'm about to dive in deep. The wheels are spinning, globes in rewind, political ablaze. Where's compassion? Where's the love? 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 Where's the faith inside? How do you breathe and how do you sleep? I guess it's a lie you've been telling yourself. Get deeper, tables are turning, world in reverse, political burning. Jesus said, sins of your fathers, ripple through time, we living and breathing it. How could I breathe when I see people dying on both sides? We need to do better, shell shock, yeah, imagine that. Powers pretending they don't even have blood on their hands. Playing on both sides, you know what you did. Change the status quo, sins of your fathers, ripple through time, we living it, breathing it. Kings and queens, mass destruction, digging mass graves, driven by the greed. You don't really care, devil smile in my face. Your hidden agenda ain't really about peace. Your hidden agenda ain't really about love. How do you breathe and how do you sleep? I guess it's a lie you've been telling yourself. The lies we see through the darkness and the blurry lines. I'm about to dive in deep. The wheels are spinning, globes in rewind, political ablaze. Where's compassion? Where's the love?